Good morning. Welcome to Shields and Arrows, where we defend the faith, the family, and the fellowship. I am Pastor Mark Baze. Thank you so much for joining us. Gangs have taken over Los Angeles, and not just any gangs, foreign gangs. And you may say, wait, that doesn't make any sense. Isn't that an oxymoron, a fallacy? If they're foreign, why are they in the United States? Well, that's because we have an open border, and we let anybody come across. It doesn't matter. And despite what the media tells you, these are not tired and hungry mommies and daddies with their babies. These are a bunch of 20-something-year-old men coming over to manipulate the system, do crime, murder our women, sell drugs to our children, and cause havoc. And there we go. If that doesn't get me kicked off of YouTube in the first 5 seconds, nothing will, and I can say whatever I want. If something does happen, you know that we stream on Worshipify as well, which is the platform of free speech, sound doctrine, and good theology. You can always join us over there as well. Now, a few things about this. These gangs are from like Venezuela, Chile, South American gangs. These are not people directly in Mexico coming across the border. They are from deep South America, where a lot of gang violence is, because many of those countries are not very safe. And they are breaking into people's homes. It's a bunch of burglary that's taking place. They are using technology. So these are not just primitive type criminals. They are utilizing technology, and they're jamming the Wi-Fi signal to people's security systems, whether it's Ring, Blink, Vivint, what is that one? AAD? No. AAT? ATD? Whichever one. They are jamming the Wi-Fi signal, and whenever they jam the Wi-Fi signal, they can bust doors, they can break windows, and nothing actually is going to be set off, and so they can just take people's stuff. The LAPD is assembling a special task force. Why is it a task force and not just SWAT to go and, take care of business? But they're assembling a special task force to handle this, and they're recommending to people that you need to utilize hardwired systems. And I think this is important. I want to talk about this. Used to, whenever the internet was still kind of early on, you had to be hardwired in. Wi-Fi wasn't a thing. You had to have an Ethernet cable or be plugged into the phone line. I remember those dial-up days. And the great thing about Ethernet is it's a lot more secure. You cannot jam it by just simply sending out a signal. So we have to realize things like Wi-Fi are really nice. GPS is really nice. Cell phone service is really nice. But all those things can be jammed. And that's exactly what they're doing. They're using technology to mess with the Wi-Fi. So there's a number of things to address here. Number one, why are we continuing to have an open border and letting in these criminals? And why are we trying to, once again, put a Band-Aid on the boo-boo instead of getting to the real issue? And the real issue is we have an open border. So we don't need special task force from LAPD. We just need to enforce the laws that are in place and secure our border and protect our American people. Why are we providing more security to these foreign military-age males than we are actual American citizens? It is insane. Now, another thing is, notice this matter of jamming Wi-Fi. We have become so dependent upon Wi-Fi that many of our homes today, how many of you even have Ethernet in your homes? An Ethernet plug-in to where you could access internet if your router didn't work. I actually had to go through a little bit of trouble to get mine set up at my house because it's not like there's Ethernet ports in every room. So I had to go up in the attic and run some wiring to be able to use some of the technology that I'm using here with you today. But we have become so reliant upon that, the idea of hardwiring things, a hardwired phone line, a hardwired internet line is becoming less and less common. This is a big problem. We need to address these things. And technology is excellent. Right now I'm using technology to talk to you across the country, across the world, and it's an amazing thing and it's a great tool and we need to use it. But at the same time, we become so dependent upon it in many ways. How many people in today's time, especially people, I'll pick on my generation, my age, how many of them could navigate across the country without GPS, without their Google Maps, without their fancy cell phone devices? How many of them would actually be able to take a classic road map, read signs as they drove, and actually make it from point A to point B? Very, very, very few. We need to not lose these skills. We have become so dependent upon everything to do everything for us. We are losing the ability to write because we're just typing. Or furthermore, kids nowadays don't even type. They just use voice to text. So they will talk to the device, the computer, the phone, whatever the case may be, and it'll just start writing and typing for you. And once again, I'm not saying that these technology advances are not extremely nice, and they can't be completely ignored because they provide some serious benefits. However, if we are becoming solely reliant upon them that we cannot function in their absence, we are setting ourselves up for trouble. There's a reason why the military still trains land navigation, land nav, with a map, a compass, and a protractor using the MGRS system. And I believe I spoke correctly there. And if not, maybe I can be corrected in the comments. But they have their military gridding system. So they know you cannot always depend upon GPS. The enemy can jam it. You can have an EMP, fill in the blank. There's a whole number of reasons why you need to be able to do things in a traditional way on your own. And when it comes to our home security systems, we've been relying on Wi-Fi, and that's great as long as the Wi-Fi works. You need to have a hardline system. Furthermore, you just need to have a home that is not an easy target anyways. There's a number of things you can do to protect your home in that sense. Better door locks when it comes to windows, certainly that's true, but first of all, live in better areas. You need to get out of the crime-ridden cities and go not to Oklahoma, anywhere else. But we need to start looking at the real issues and the real problems. And so much of our dependency has caused us to be very easily targeted. Think about this. Think about how dependent we are in terms of theology. We are so dependent upon our professors, our pastors, our commentaries, our publishers. We talked about this yesterday, and so many of them actually don't get a lot of things right when it comes to theology. We need to stop being so dependent upon them to tell us what to think, how to teach the Bible, how to study the Bible. How many churches, and this is true for mine as well in many cases, it's not easy to prep for Sunday school, and most of the time your Sunday school teachers for your other kids, like for the kids' age, they have jobs. They've got to take care of their own kids or whatever. These moms, they don't have time to sit down and prep for even 30 minutes. And often 30 minutes is not no time to make a Sunday school lesson. So they need a curriculum. And I understand, and I think there are good curriculums out there, and you can find them, but how many of us have just been depending upon whatever the publishing companies give us, Lifeway or whatever the case, and we just think they're doing it right? Well, if you look at Lifeway and you read how they teach the Jesus parables, they're not going to get it right either. Because once again, we have become dependent upon what we think are the experts on the matter, and in reality they're not. We would be so much better off if we can do it ourselves. There's so many things that we have lost basic fundamental skills simply because we have not been doing it for ourselves, making ourselves learn how to do these things on our own. You need to be able to teach your kids to write in cursive. Your kids should be able to handwrite. They should. It's an amazing, important tool. All right, there's that matter on the gangs. Good luck trying that in Oklahoma. Just wait. They're probably going to save the rural states for last before they try, but unfortunately, it's heading our way. Dallas is already dealing with it, and what happens in Dallas finds its way across the Red River eventually. So the issue is for the gangs in Dallas area who hope to move into the regions of rural Oklahoma, we are not dependent upon local law enforcement to take care of our business. And in Oklahoma, we have an amazing law called Make My Day. And if you dare break into our home, yes, you absolutely will make our day. Now, we'll make our day. Now, with that being said, let's move on and talk about a little bit of stuff concerning Donald Trump. It's every single day. It seems like there's something that we need to address. There's something that we need to say. And with all things, good Trump, bad Trump, the Ben Shapiro routine, if you've ever seen it, he holds his signs up. He's got the good Trump and he's got the bad Trump. And there's a lot of conservatives today who are going to be very harsh on Trump for how he handled his Fox News interview on addressing abortion. And I'll be honest, I wish that Trump took a harder stance right now, but I'm going to talk to you why our complaints are invalid. There were a few things they brought up. Trump is very much saying there needs to be a few instances in which it's allowed, right? And you can imagine the extremes. And the extremes that the liberals always bring up to say this is why we need abortion, but we all know that's not why they want abortion. They want it as a form of contraceptive, birth control, reproductive freedom, which is such a joke. Social justice, the anti-racism, all of those things, the isms, whatever the case may be, the terms that they coin are never the things they actually mean. It's always the exact opposite. So Trump makes this point about there needs to be some exceptions, and he's talking about there needs to be a nationally agreed week. And I don't know. I'm trying to decide how I feel about a national law. For one, I mean, if I was the executive, I would ban abortion if I had the power to do so, because I think it's a great evil. But what does that look like? And are we creating a increase in power of the federal government by doing so? There's a lot of issues there. On the local level, absolutely, I'm all for it. But what do we do on the state, on the federal level? Because in theory, yes, if you sign the law to ban it, that's great. Can it be weaponized and used against us later? These are things that are worth discussing. I'm not telling you I really land in either camp at the moment. What Trump is saying, though, he's talking about a national abortion limit, a certain week. Up to that week, and you cannot do any abortion after that. And Trump's talking about something like 16 weeks, which you and I would agree that's the murder of a 16-week-old unborn baby. But we can sit there and we can throw, to use our biblical vague references, we can throw rocks at Trump all we want and say, oh, how terrible, you are not truly pro-life. You are saying that it's okay to have abortions up to 16 weeks. Before we are so quick to get on our high horse, Donald Trump is the most pro-life president we have ever had. And you may not like that. You may say he's mean, he says things that aren't nice, he's not a nice man, he's done some bad things. I'm not saying any of those things are you're out of order to bring any of that up. He's done a lot of things. He's a billionaire. He's lived a pretty celebrity-type life. He's done all sorts of stuff. But you don't get to decide who is the most pro-life president. Donald Trump was a major role in getting the Supreme Court to overturn Roe v. Wade. Plain and simple. He's the only president to have ever attended the March for Life. So we can get up here and we can say how terrible it is that Trump is not taking a harder stance against abortion. And I understand. I do not support a 16-week abortion or a limit on that. I say, no, life begins at conception. And evil does not justify more evil. So we can go down that lane and talk about all of that. But what I'm telling you is, whether we like it or not, Donald Trump is the most pro-life president we've ever had. So for us to get up there and say, oh, what he did in the Fox News interview, that's terrible, he's not a true conservative, this, that, we need somebody else. I'm not telling you that I liked everything he had to say, but what I'm telling you is the record speaks for itself. He's got the record. And guess what? He is the most pro-life candidate that we can pick right now. And you may not like that, but I'm just telling you what the reality is. He is the most pro-life candidate that we have. We could appoint whoever we wanted to that is the most hardline, life begins at conception. But what does it matter if he doesn't get elected and get to make laws? Right? Isn't that the point? I mean, that's great. I mean, if we're going by all those moral standards, then let's, I nominate the sweet, wonderful ladies at my church to be congressman and president. Because they have all those values. But right now, they're not the ones that are leading the opposing party and winning in the national poll. We do not get to choose. We don't get to choose our politicians, unfortunately, even though we would like to think we do. We are limited to a degree, and for us to get up there and use this as ire to say a true conservative, a true pro-lifer will not support Trump, you're sounding like a foolish person, because he's the most pro-life president that we've ever had. Plain and simple. You may not like it. I'm just telling you the way it is. Now, let's see here. I want to say hi to you. We'll jump into some theology questions from Davey here in just a minute, but I want to say hi to all of you and greet you this morning. Susan, great to have you today. Ken, good morning. He's cruising down I-49 at 82 miles an hour en route to Baton Rouge. So you need a great broadcast for the next hour. Ken, I'll get as close as I can. I do have a meeting today, so this may be more like a 45-minute broadcast. But I'm impressed. So are you in Texas right now? And if so, how are you able to drive without all of that construction? Nancy, great to have you this morning. You're getting ready for another road trip today. Oh, that's exciting. You have fun. I guess you've got your puppy dog with you. I can see by the emojis. Kristen, good morning. You got your first round of books in the mail yesterday, and you're into the second one now. Yes, Randy White, he does a great job. Great job. I recommend all of his theology books. Be sure to tell him I sent you. Davey, hey, good morning, Davey. Davey, I'm going to get to your question. It's a deep one. Like all of Davey's questions, it sends me down a rabbit hole trying to do a lot of digging there. So I don't know if I'm going to give you the answer you're excited about or want, but I'll give you my thoughts. Morning, Mom. Glad to have you. My mom is enjoying the nice nature right now. I'll just leave it at that. I don't know how much she wants me to give away on the internet. She's enjoying nature at the moment. Carol, good morning. Great to have you on. Nancy says, we have the Mexican cartel running out town. Oh, running your town maybe? It used to be the mafia. It was better then. Yeah, at least the mafia, they've got a little bit of morals, right? Not the women and children. And that's, I can't do an Italian accent. But yeah, the mafia, at least they're Catholic. And the mafia are probably better Catholics than our president. Oh, goodness. All right. Let's see here. Yeah, they're the newcomers. Yeah, these gangs, these violent MS-13 murderers, they're just newcomers, that's all. They're dreamers. Scott, great to have you this morning. You love using an Atlas roadmap, Nancy, so you can see where you are and where you're going. My wife and I, on our first anniversary, we made a trip out to Taos, and we just used Atlas the whole way. We made one wrong turn. Only threw us off by about an hour. Kristen, that's part of why you love taking trips on the Harley. Yeah, that's right. That's right, you bikers over there. Half the places you go, you don't have signal for GPS. That's right. The old way to do it. All right. Well, now let's go ahead and jump over to Davey's question and look at what he asked. It's kind of building off of his eschatology question. And that's the question I have in the doc right now. So if you do have any questions while I'm working on Davey's, if you have any comments, what do you think about Trump's statements on abortion, fill in the blank, be sure to comment. And obviously some of you, if you're driving, I understand. But comment, let me know what you're thinking, because this is basically, it's a 30-minute show plus however long you want me to go. I'll put it that way. So I've got 30 minutes worth of material for you, and then I'm counting on you to give me the rest to get us to as close to an hour as you want. You can set the limit on this thing. All right, let's go over to let me pull up the email. And you can always submit your questions to me at markdbaze@gmail.com. And let's see here. Davey, let me find you. Here we go. So, Davey, this is building on the questions we talked about. Kind of interesting looking at this matter last time we discussed this of whenever Jesus talked about, if your right hand offend thee, cut it off. If your right eye offend thee, pluck it out. Or your eye offend thee, whichever one. And this idea of, okay, everything in the Sermon on the Mount is in frame of receiving the kingdom. And a major component of receiving the kingdom is enduring the tribulation. Are we hearing some instruction that could make us think, is he actually talking about some very specific matters, like a mark on your hand, a mark in your forehead? What do we do with that? And we kind of speculated, is it possible that maybe a Jew not knowing, not putting two and two together, or a person, but at that point, though, you're going to be practicing the law anyways, so you're going to be a proselyte. Maybe you take the mark on your hand, and then you realize, oh my goodness, what have I done? Chop, get it off, cast it away from you. We kind of looked at that as, is there this room to say, could somebody take the mark and then realize and remove that body part? your eye, could we argue maybe your eye's somewhat in your forehead, so maybe the mark of the beast is in your eye, a retinal scan. I don't know. All these things are very interesting. And so you pluck it out and say, no, I cast it away from me. And we ran into Revelation chapter 20, verse 4, and it said, those that would be resurrected had not taken the mark of the beast. That kind of gave us some trouble. And we said, well, that's a big problem. If we're going to try to support that theory, Revelation chapter 20, verse 4, it's an issue. It's a problem. And Davey acknowledges that, and he responded and said, yeah, I think I agree with where you're going with this. It does create some problem, and the connection just isn't quite there. So, Davey, appreciate you. Here you go. You're submitting another question now. And let's see, with Revelation 7, verses 3 through 4. That's what you're going to be referencing, so let me get Revelation 7, 3 through 4 pulled up here. Okay, here we go. Davey, your question is, Revelation 7, verses 3 through 4 is very interesting. Then you quote the passage. Let me go ahead and read verses 1 and 2. And after these things I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth. The earth is flat. Maybe not quite. Let's not jump to conclusions just yet. Holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. Interesting there, the 4 winds, how can you hold it? I think there's a lot going on there. Verse 2, and I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God. What is this seal? I do not know. Wait, hold on, no. I do know this one. Because we're talking, there's 2 different seals that we're going to be addressing, because we just talked about the seals in chapter 6. So this seal is obviously going to be one of the seals in the scroll that Christ opens. And so that seal is in regards to that scroll. The deal, essentially the deed to the earth. So that is the seal that's being referred to in Revelation chapter 7, verse 2. Having the seal of the living God, and he cried with a loud voice to the 4 angels, to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea. So obviously every single one of these seals that you read here in the context of the book of Revelation, those seals all refer to all these disasters, these signs, these wonders, and you can tie it to Joel, even if you want, the end times prophecies. So these seals are going to bring earthquakes, fill in the blank, all of this stuff that you can read about in chapter 6. So the angel holding the seal of the living God, he cries out to the other 4, those that were given the authority, the responsibility to afflict the earth, to afflict the world. And then verse 3, saying, hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God in their foreheads. So, sealed. The word sealed right there. That's what I was talking about earlier. Is a different seal from this one. This is the seal regarding the scroll that Christ opens. And this, or the little book, I keep saying scroll, but probably very same thing. So this is sealed, the servants of our God in their foreheads. So Davey, you love to ask these eschatology questions, and now I have to speculate about things. I'm going to tell you up front, I have not done a verse-by-verse study through Revelation yet. I've read a lot of Revelation, studied quite a bit of Revelation. I haven't done a verse-by-verse, and I haven't nailed down exactly what my position is on a lot of this concerning the seal regarding the servants of God. Now, you have a parallel here. You have the mark of the beast that's on the forehead or in the forehead of those who worship the beast, and then you have the seal to the servants of God in their foreheads. What is this? Is there actually a mark placed upon their foreheads? You seem to maybe have an argument there for that, or a mark in their foreheads, the seal in their foreheads. What do we do with that? Regardless, though, we do know that there are these servants, and they do have the seal. They will be given the seal of the living God. So, Verse 4, and I heard the number of them which were sealed, and there were sealed 144, or 140, and 4,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel. Clearly, that is every believer. That's every believer because we're the spiritual Israel. Oh, you silly covenant theologians. Can't you just take the Bible for what it says? It's the children of Israel. It's the nation of Israel. The 144,000, it's the remnant. And so, as we go there, there are the 144,000, the remnant, that are sealed during the days of the tribulation. And God is going to seal them and not inflict the earth until after that sealing has taken place. And I would say that sealing is a guaranteed protection. We know that 144,000 will be protected during the course of the tribulation. And so this is what we have. Those verses, verse 3 and 4, that the 144,000 are sealed. Now, Davey, you go on and your question is, this would mean the 144,000 would have the sound doctrine to preach, teach, and serve God before and during the tribulation. Okay, I'm going to pause right there. Are we building this upon doctrine? What passage of Scripture do we have that would make us say that? Are you saying that being sealed refers to sound doctrine to preach, to teach, and serve God before and during the tribulation? Is that what you're saying sealed means? If so, where do we build that theology? I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that I have not necessarily done my homework. Now, maybe you know something I don't know. I'm going to try to do a quick word search really quickly just to see if I can find something to make me see where you're going with this. Maybe you have another passage of Scripture that gives that context. Do we have that? We do know the 144,000 will not take the mark of the beast. We know that they are obedient. Let's see here. Let me open up another screen on Biblify. Are you maybe kind of referencing chapter 13 again? So, or no, maybe it's chapter 12. And I mean, obviously this is the image of the woman and the child. And she brought forth a man-child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught up unto God and to his throne, that'd be Christ. And the woman fled into the wilderness, that's Israel, where she hath a place prepared of God. So, the 144,000, the remnant, will have a place in the wilderness, and we can speculate where that may be, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. So, the second half of that tribulation. And I'm just trying to look, and I don't want to just brush past necessarily that idea there of the sealed. If you're making that connection, maybe you've responded here. Yeah, so Nancy, that's what we speculated yesterday, and I'm reading your comments to see if Davey may have commented to clarify for me what he meant by the being sealed, and if you're talking about sealed refers to the ability to teach doctrine. So Nancy says, light bulb, I wonder if the mark of the beast in the forehead will have to do with the person's eye. See, that's what, Davey brought that, well, Davey kind of brought it up in connection with the hand, and then I made the connection with the eye. Could it be like a retinal scan? So like you've got your hand and then you've got your eye. And so is that the case? That's kind of what we speculated, Nancy. I'm not sure. I'm not entirely convinced. I don't know either way, but it's interesting. And it kind of makes sense. Out of all the places it would be, maybe in the eye. So Davey, maybe there's some scripture here that I'm just going to leave room to say maybe you have a good reason to say that the sealing means doctrine. And that's the case. So they'll have the ability, they would have sound doctrine to preach, teach, and serve God before and during the tribulation. Now, what's interesting is you add before the tribulation. Granted, the tribulation is when the earth begins to be afflicted. But is the first half of that tribulation, this is where things get a little bit interesting. Do we have some of the events of the tribulation taking place prior to the midway point, when the Great Tribulation occurs? If so, is that what you mean? Do you mean that, well, we have the 7 years start, and those 144,000 do understand doctrine and what God is doing today, what's going on today, that they're in the tribulation, they're waiting for the Messiah? Is that the case? Or are you saying that it's actually, that 144,000 knows sound doctrine prior to the 7 years? And if so, do we have this 144,000 remnant overlap? Because if they know, then why haven't they accepted salvation by grace through faith and then been raptured with us? Do you see what I'm saying here? So then we could say, well, is there a gap? Do you have a gap? The rapture takes place, and then let's say you have, 18 years? 18 years of some dead time, kind of. Basically, you go back to the law program, but the tribulation hasn't started yet. And so then by the time you get to the first year of the tribulation, you have 18-year-olds making up the 144,000. This is where it gets very interesting, and your question, Davies, are always so good, but they're so deep. There's so much to it, and it makes you want to think and try to put all this together. So could that sealing mean doctrine? I think that there's a case for that we could say they're the ones that do understand what's going on. They realize the Antichrist is who he is. They're not deceived. So I think in that case we could say, yes, they do have good doctrine because they're not going to take the mark, right? Are there others that aren't in the 144,000 who maybe are deceived and take the mark, and then, of course, then we could go down the line of cutting their hands off, plucking out their eyes. That is where things get very interesting. I'm not going to tell you where I land either way. Revelation 20 verse 4 is still kind of a problem there, but what if Revelation 20 verse 4 is in the context of that remnant, the 144,000? No, it can't be though, because they were not the ones that were preserved. Right? There we go. So you're watching me in real time reason through this. I haven't pre-prepared my answer to you, because Revelation 20 verse 4, it talks about those who have lost their lives for Christ. So it can't be those who were beheaded for the witness of Jesus. So that can't be the 144,000. See, once again, we end up continuing to say the 144,000, they don't lose their lives in the tribulation, they're spared. And so whoever this is that was beheaded for the witness of Jesus, they neither had received the mark upon their foreheads or in their hands. I don't know, is there room in that language there, even in the English, or maybe the underlying Greek, to say, maybe there's some room to say they had removed it. They did not receive it and keep it. I don't know. That's where things get very interesting. I don't want to just throw that theory out. I think it's interesting. And like I said, there is that tie-in to what Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount that just makes you wonder. And I think it's worth looking into and worth studying. So I think, Davey, some of what you're saying is that sound doctrine. The sealing would be doctrine. That's your position. Before the tribulation, because they are virgins. So, Davey, are you thinking there's a gap between there? Or would those 144,000 not have received the grace gospel and they could be alive today, and then whenever the tribulation comes, then they come to understand what's going on? You would almost have to say that there's a gap, or the 144,000 are being obedient Jews right now, at least as best as they can, but they have not acknowledged Christ as their Messiah and received the grace offer today. Eschatology is so deep. All right, and you go on to say further, Could the ceiling mean doctrine and their eyes would be like light? Matthew 6, verse 22. Okay, so Matthew 6, verse 22 here. And the light of the body is the eye, and therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. But if thine eye be evil, thy whole body shall be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in thee be darkness, how great is that darkness? And then you have no man can serve two masters, for he will either hate one and love the other. I mean, so much of that, Davy, it's all about the tribulation. But lay up for yourselves treasure in heaven, go back to verse 20, where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, and where thieves do not break through nor steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. For the light of the body is the eye. Now, in that sense, it could just be talking about what you treasure, what you value. So your eyes, look upon what you want, what you desire, and you should have a righteous desire. And that their eyes would be like light. John 8, verse 12, so you're also drawing another connection here. Then spake Jesus unto them, saying, I am the light of the world. He that followeth me shall not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life. So we're trying to make this connection here about the eyes and the seal maybe being doctrine and light. I love taking the Bible literally for what it says. I think there is some figurative language in there. We would have to do some groundwork to make a case that we are talking about the mark of the beast or being sealed of God, or the eyes be darkened like the children of Satan, verse 23 like I read. And also, you referenced Psalm 69:23. Let their eyes be darkened that they see not, and make their loins continually to shake. Let them be blotted, and goes on in verse 28, let them be blotted out of the book of the living and not be written with the righteous. I mean, I think so much about, I'm going to tell you this right here. I'm not going to land, like I said, and I may not satisfy you, I'm not going to land on a particular position right now concerning that the eye connection with the mark of the beast, or to a degree, I guess, the light being maybe a sense of the ceiling. I'm not going to say it's not possible. I'm not going to say it's not possible either. I'm not throwing it out, but I'm not wholesale jumping in. I'm saying there's something here, I think. And I'll say this, Davey, to your credit. The Sermon on the Mount is so much deeper, and there's way more to it than what most people realize. Obviously, we realize the Sermon on the Mount is about the Jewish people concerning receiving the kingdom and the tribulation. So we understand the deeper meaning behind it. So a lot of evangelicals miss that. But furthermore, I think even for us, we don't understand it either. I think that there's probably so much more in detail. We have a better understanding than the standard evangelical, but there's still so much more depth, and we have so much more studying to do. Davey, I want to encourage you, keep this up, keep going, keep seeing what you can bring up here, because, like Nancy said, it does seem like there is this, you have the right hand, cut it off, cast it from you. Your right eye offends you, pluck it out. I mean, almost in the sense of, here you go, ready? All right, here's the rabbit hole even more. To avoid taking the mark of the beast. Technically, if you cut off your hand beforehand, you really couldn't take the mark of the beast on your right hand. Think about that. If you just cut off your right hand prior to any of it, they couldn't put it on by force. You couldn't be tempted to do it because it's not there. Or in your right eye, you plug it out. See, you can't do it. It's not. I don't have it. I don't have the location for you to put it on me or for you to put it in me. And then I've got the Messiah. He made the blind see, the deaf hear. the lame man walk. He attached an ear. When he comes in time for the kingdom, he can fix me. he can heal my body and make me whole. But in the meantime, I'm just going to, I don't know, you're kind of adding a little bit of self-mutilation prior to any kind of sin. But that's interesting, isn't it? And it's stuff that we haven't thought about, and you only think about those things if you know how to rightly divide the Bible and realize what the context is. So that's interesting. It makes you wonder. Davey, what a deep question. And you go on here, talk a little bit more about the future dispensation would bring back miracles, signs, and wonders. Absolutely. And so also having said that, will there be saints walking around in the kingdom with one hand and one eye? Or do you think the 144,000 will have the ability to heal them and restore them before entering into the kingdom? That's deep. Do we have grounds to say the 144,000 can perform miracles? I know there will be some prophets. We have the 2 olive trees. And maybe you have done more research on the 144,000 and you have more scriptural, biblical text support to argue the things you're saying. Otherwise, you may be saying more about the 144,000 than what we really know. So I would be hesitant to just say, like, I know what we're talking about. And like I said, maybe we don't know as much about them as we think we do. But once again, the whole connection with the hand and the eye, it makes you wonder. And so that's why I'm saying we will never run out of things to study. There's always so much more depth, always so much more studying we could do. Ken ties in the dry bones, the 144,000. Yes, what's the image there? What's that picture? So much to it, so much there. Davey, excellent question. Once again, I have to say, I'm not ready to jump in both feet yet, but you keep on bringing up interesting connections there. And I want to encourage you, keep it up. That is so good. You're doing such a good job, Davey. And I am excited for Bible students who want to find those deeper key indications. Okay, that's interesting. The 144,000 would be chosen to complete the dispensation. Which one? Our dispensation? Because once again, if they're a part of our dispensation, why are they not raptured? Why does that not apply to them? But I think you mean the dispensation of the law. All right, do we have anything else before we get around and go? You're still trying to figure out the 10 virgins. Yeah, what's the significance there? I mean, there is the understanding that you and I understand of it's the kingdom. It's a parable concerning the kingdom. But I think there's a lot there. I think that now we see through a glass darkly, but one day we will see face to face. And just as how you started to understand rightly dividing the Bible and dispensational doctrine, how the Bible just came to life, I think there is a whole other level that one of these days we will have understanding and we will be blown away. That is by how deep it all is. Yeah, not ours, David. Yeah, that's what I thought. I think that you're right. They do complete that pre-kingdom, pre-millennium dispensation. You're right. You're right on that. Absolutely. I agree with you. Well, okay, it's about time I got to get around and get headed to a meeting. And in the meantime, stay tuned for the next episode, which will be tomorrow, Wednesday. I appreciate each and every single one of you. I'm still working on getting that website updated. We'll have it up and running soon enough. But this has been Shields and Arrows, where we defend the faith, the family, and the fellowship. I'm Pastor Mark Baze. Thank you so much for all your questions and your insight. Don't hesitate to reach out to me, markdbaze@gmail.com. You can find me on my website, markbazeministries.org. Thank you all.